Hi, welcome. Your tutor, Nixon. Um, First, we have to access our Google Drive. So we simply open we log into our Google account. Then we can either access our drive from this point or from this point. So when we click here, we select drive, then the drive opens. Um, then at this point, because we are using the last Google Doc that we had, so I select my product sales, and here it is. So what happens here is that we want to first of all start by um, creating another sheet. So we come down here, we click on add. When we click on add, we have this sheet here that appears as sheet 4. So we click on the down arrow and select rename on that menu. Then maybe I want to call it product sales 1. So that gives me the product sales 1. Then I want to copy what is on product sales. So I simply click here, then I come back in this small square here. When I click there, you see everything here is highlighted. So I right click, then I copy. Then I come back to product sales 1. Then I click the same square, right click, and paste. So this brings everything that I have on the previous sheet, that is the product sales sheet. It brings everything onto product sales 1 sheet. When we copy and paste in this manner, then that ensures that we are carrying over everything, including the functions that have been used to tabulate, like here the amount, to get the total amount here, the average sales, highest sales, lowest. So it brings everything over. So I want us to briefly look at how to use logical functions. For example, how do we use the if function? So if we want to display the number of sales that were made, that are greater than 20. So we want it displayed in this column of quantity. So we click here, then we come to insert. When we come to insert, we move here to function. Then once we are on function, we want count if. So I can come here and I just scroll. I come here and scroll, insert, then function, something not going so well here, function, then we go to all. Once we are on all, we scroll down to count if. So there it is. Once we click on count if, this is what is displayed. So we need to give a range of values. So we want these values from 73 down to 10. So the easiest option is just highlighting them like that, and then we will have the values being inserted there automatically. Then in this function we should have a comma. Then we want anything that is that is greater than 20 displayed. So we enclose 20 in quotation marks. Then I click enter. Now you realize that it is not displaying what I need. That is because here the condition is not being displayed. The condition is not there, so I simply add the condition and press enter. So it now displays the 4. We can prove this manually. We want anything that is greater than 20, so we have 21, 33, 40, and 73. Those are actually 4. Then once we've looked at how to use the COUNTIF function, I want us to look at how to use the if function. So we will have it in the column that I've labeled here as performance. So again, we go to insert, we come to function, then we go to all. Once we are on all, we want the if function. So I can still scroll down to go to my function. I can still scroll down to go to my function. Here it is. Or we can still get it by coming to logical. Once we come to logical, if function is still there. So once I select on it, this is what is displayed in the cell where I want the values. Now, remember, we are using the values that are found. We are using the values that are found in this column of quantity. So, for example, anything that sold, anything that we can decide to use this, or we decide to use amount. So allow me to use the amount column. So any sales that were less than 50, maybe that means poor performance. So the first cell here that has amount is F2. This is F2, where we have 945.35. So here we are saying that if F2 is less than 50, if F2 is less than 50, then what is it that should be displayed? We should have poor being displayed. We should have the comment there being poor, then we close it up. Then the second condition is, if it is between 50 and 100, then that will be written as if remember the way we have here, there is a bracket before, that is after if. So we'll put a bracket and still have our F2. So if our F2 is less than 100, if it is less than 100, then what is it that should be displayed there? Let the comment be average. Then we must also close it up. Then lastly, because anything above 100 is good, we don't need to add another if function. Although if we added, it would still work. So here I simply say that if it is none of the first two, then the comment should be good. And then I close it up. Lastly, you realize that we have two ifs in our function or statement. So what I do is I add another bracket. So the number of brackets must be equivalent to the number of ifs in this function. Then I press enter and it displays good. Is it true? Remember, anything more than 100 is good. So like this one, 945.35 is actually greater than 100. So this statement is true. After that, we come to this point. Once we have the addition symbol, we just scroll down and we'll have the appropriate comments being made for each of these values. Once we have done this, how do we format cells? For example, we can change the orientation of these labels here. We simply highlight, then we come to format. When we come to format, you realize that it actually involves many things. So first, we can make them bold. You see that they become bold. We can still come and decide to change the angle a bit. So we come here to text rotation, then we select angle, and then when we select the angle, for example, I decide to pick 30, then that changes the orientation of each of these texts. We can also decide to format this group of cells. We can decide to format this group of cells. So once we do that, okay, there is alignment. We can decide to have everything at either on the left, the center, or the right, the top, or the middle, or the bottom. So, for example, if we picked center, then you see it changes where all our values are appearing. They actually appear at the center. Alternatively, we can still click there. And when we right click, once these cells are highlighted, you realize that there is a menu that pops up. So here we can actually do anything that we want because it still has a list of options that we can actually pick. So when we go back here to data, we still have options here. We can use actually any of them. We can use them to make a table. We can validate the data. We can create filters. We can sort everything that we have here. Lastly, maybe I would like to say that once we have all this, I had already indicated that we can even change the colors. For example, we can change the colors. We can do text wrapping. We can merge the cells, but we don't want to merge cells at this time. We can align differently. We've already done that. We changed it from left to center. We can change the font size, for example, to 12, and that is what will actually appear. So in this case, we are simply saying that there are many things we can do. Here, when you click on more, we also have these icons appearing. For example, I can decide to change the borders and make them bold. You see, that is what happens. And because we had highlighted only one, then that gives us only the highlighted cells being formatted in the way that we desire. So this brings us to the end of the lesson.